Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Why I Love podcast. We're back to games this time. There will be a lot of these about games because I absolutely love them, so I thought why not look at one of the main reasons that I'm into games so much. So this podcast is called Why I Love Treasure Island Dizzy. So this podcast is supposed to be a place where I talk really positively about things, and it's a difficult one with this because although I have really fond memories of this game, and this game is probably the reason why I'm so into games now, I hate this game. I really do. I just watched someone complete it on YouTube. I've never managed to finish it as a kid, and do you know what? Fuck them. Fuck the developers. Fuck everyone who came up with this game. It is ridiculously hard. I would never have worked that out as a kid. And that's just unfair. Why would you do that to a child? Why would you give a child this game? And here's the story, okay? My parents went out and we'd had games in the past. We had like the Spectrum and we had kids games, but they were sort of shared with me and my sister. And then we got the Amiga, and I think they went out and they got like a big case of games from a car boot or something. And before that we'd only had sort of education games, you know, look around this house and click on dangers, or do these like little puzzles as a frog to learn maths and English. And then they come back with this huge collection of games, and I was so excited. It was brilliant. I was suddenly going to have all these things to play, and they showed me this case filled with all these discs. And at the time, my sister was really into games as well, so she was really excited. We were both like, this was the best thing ever. And then they turned around and they said, okay, so we're going to give you one game each. When you complete it, you can have a new one. And my parents aren't evil. They just didn't know. They didn't know what games were like. They hadn't really played them. They'd played the Spectrum ones with us, but they didn't know how absolutely nasty these developers were at the time. I mean, people complain about Dark Souls and things now, and they think they're playing hard games, but these old games, they were impossible. I mean, there is just no way that as a kid you would be able to finish this game. After watching that playthrough then on YouTube, I can't believe how far I got. I kept getting a bit further in the video thinking, okay, well, I don't think I got this far. And then I'd see the next screen and be like, oh, well, I did, because I definitely remember this. But like, how the hell did I do that? So on top of this rule where we had to complete the game before we could move on to a new one, we also had this limit that we could only play games for half an hour a day. Because, you know, your eyes would go square, or you'd go blind, or video games were evil in some way. You know, it was still a weird time for kids playing games, and my parents were quite worried about it. So here I am with this game, which when I first put it on, I thought it was amazing. I mean, just now listening to it again, the music is great. I mean, it sounds bad now, sort of, but nostalgia-wise, fantastic. And you were running around as this little character, and at this point I'd never had like a games console, so I didn't know who Sonic and Mario were, and to me Dizzy was like the guy straight away. I just thought he was brilliant. He just like this little egg guy with like boxing gloves for hands. He's bizarre, but he was really fun. So I'm going around this treasure island, I'm thinking, oh, this is amazing, and jumping around and climbing up this little hill. I was like, oh, there's a gravestone, and there's talk about a pirate. This is amazing. Walking along, and suddenly a trap falls on your head and you're dead. And you're like, okay, well, that only took a few minutes, so I've still got, 25 minutes of my half an hour. I'll just start again. So you go again, and you do that, and again, and again, and another trap falls on you, or you touch a torch and you turn into a fried egg, or you touch a wasp and it kills you, or you pick something up in the wrong order, it means you drop your snorkel whilst you're underwater and you die, or you think, maybe I can fall down that hole, so you try it and you die, or you don't fall down a hole, but down that hole's the thing you actually needed the whole time. So because I've only been able to play half an hour a day, and having no way to save, and only having one life, this became like the ultimate game of trial and error. I would figure out, there's a trap here, okay, I've got to remember to jump here. And it became a huge memory puzzle game as well, because you're trying to remember every single thing. This was probably my first experience of doing speedruns without knowing it, because I was trying to maximize everything. I was trying to learn, where to drop this item, where to pick this item up, whether to go left on this screen or to go up first and get another item before you go left, so you don't end up having to backtrack. And yeah, that limit somehow made the game better. Like, it didn't, because I used to cry and cry playing this game. When it got to the half-an-hour limit and I still was alive, I remember just floods and floods of tears as a little kid, desperately trying to convince my parents to let me play longer. But in some ways it did. I mean, it really added to it, because I didn't get sick of the game, and I think maybe that was their hope. I don't think they knew how hard the game was, but I think they just thought if they just gave us half an hour, it would kind of limit how much we could get into games and we wouldn't really like them. And, when they saw how difficult it was, maybe in a way they were thinking, well, that's fine, because he'll probably get bored of this soon and move on to something better, like reading or doing homework or, stuff that's useful in their eyes. But actually, the time limit and the one life and everything, it did create this sort of weird trial and error speedrun atmosphere where it just became so addictive. It became this thing that I had to beat, I had to do it. Looking at this video today, it's kind of made me cross, because I would never have figured this stuff out. Okay, so I should probably explain the game for anyone who's not played it. It's a 2D platformer. You play as this little guy called Dizzy. You go around picking up items and using them to kind of get other items, basically, to get further on in the level. Now, there's a bit that turns out to be pretty much the end of the game, where you find a man who says he'll sell you a boat to let you off the island. And I would get there, and I think I would give him like a bag of gold or something, and he would sell you the boat. And I was like, I've done it. I was so excited. This is it. I've finished it. I'm doing it. I go over to the pier. I select the boat goes on the water, and I stand on the boat and nothing happens. So I go back to the man and he says, oh, you'll need to buy a motor for the boat. And then obviously the time ran out. So then I would go back again and I would get the boat, and then I would be like, right, what else can I sell to him? What else can I find that he'll want to give me this motor? And then I finally find it, and I find this like little hidden cavern somewhere, and there's some old whiskey in it, and I give him it and he says, yes, you can have the motor. And I was run over to the boat and I put it on the boat, and then it says, oh, you'll need some petrol though. And then the half an hour runs out, and then you go back the next day and you buy the boat again, and you buy the engine, and you look for something new to sell so that you can get the petrol. And the half an hour runs out, and you go back the next day and you buy the boat, and you buy the engine, and you look for something to buy the petrol with, and the half an hour runs out. So you go back the next day, but halfway through you die. You forget about the snorkel, or you step on the trap, or you jump in the wrong way and you hit one of the little bugs flying around in the air. So you go back the next day, and you buy the boat, and you buy the engine, and you try everything you can in the half an hour, and the extra half an hour that you can get if you cry hard enough, but you can't ever find something to buy the petrol with. But it turns out that none of that would have mattered anyway, because even if I'd have bought the petrol, I then would have had to have bought a fucking ignition key, and to do that, there was about 15 ridiculous steps that no person who didn't develop that game would ever have worked out. And then when you finally get on the boat, you go to the other side, and there's a man there, and he says, oh, you haven't really finished the game unless you've got all 30 coins. And you're never going to have all 30 coins, because some of the ways to find the coins were just ridiculous and involved you doing things that no sane person would ever do in a game where you only have one life and no save point. So obviously I never finished it. And I thought about going back to it quite a few times and trying to play it again, but I knew what would happen is that I would just end up looking it up and it wouldn't be as fun and it would kind of ruin the experience. And in a way, watching this playthrough today almost has, because part of me kind of still feels like I might have done it one day. Now I know I never would have done, I would never have found the time to work those things out. Even with an infinite amount of time, I might not have figured some of those things out. But it doesn't stop the game being incredible. I mean, I played that game so much, and I became so hooked on it, and and I learnt so much playing it. And I didn't realise as a kid I was doing this, but, I learnt about the way games work, I learnt some things about the way games are designed, and I learnt a lot just about how to deal with anger, how to deal with the repetitiveness sometimes that comes in games, the repeated frustrations that you get with games. I see that again and again in games where I purposely pick, to try and do legendary runs on Halo or various things on Splinter Cell, like setting myself little limits just to make the game harder. I realised that I loved that stuff. Even though it makes me angry, that's what got me hooked. Those kind of things, those challenges, games like Super Meat Boy and N+, and pushing you to that limit of where you want to smash a controller or smash the game to bits, but you don't, because that feeling you get when you finally do it. And although I never finished Treasure Island Dizzy, just the feeling of getting that little bit further every day, or when you finally bought the boat, that little high that you get is incredible. And that's why I love games so much. That's why I love the challenge that they give you, and that's why I'll always love Treasure Island Dizzy.